Mugdha, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, now is it okay?
Again, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'll just check. Pradnya, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session on Only One Thing Talk series. And today's talk is around technology assessment, the first step from lab to market. We have my colleague Pradnya Aradhye from Venture Center. She's part of the TechX team here. Pradnya is manager for innovation management at Venture Center. She leads technology marketing, industry connects, lead management, and deal structuring at TechX at Venture Center. Pradnya is a registered technology transfer professional with international accreditation in technology management. Earlier at Venture Center, Pradnya has been a bio-incubation manager with almost 5 years of experience in this domain, after which she joined the TechX team. Pradnya plays a key role in setting up the bio-incubator at Venture Center. She mentored medtech and diagnostic startups to secure government grants and funding. By training, Pradnya is a MTech in biological sciences and bioengineering from IIT Kanpur. With this brief introduction, welcome Pradnya to the session and handing over the session to you.
Thank you, Mugdha. Uh, I'll just share my screen. You just let me know whether it is visible and is full screen. Is it visible?
Yeah,
And is it full screen?
not yet. Yeah, now it.
Okay. Thanks, Mugdha. Good afternoon, all. Uh, Today I'll be talking about technology assessment, one of the critical functions in technology transfer office. This session is based on practical frameworks used globally and adapted to our ecosystem at TechX Venture Center. During my talk, I will be covering following topics today: what technology assessment is and why it matters, how we triage inventions, a practical assessment framework, how we score technologies, finally, how we make the decisions, and I will end with few hypothetical case studies explaining how the scoring is done. Let us start with the reality. So, we understand that in US only half of the invention disclosures are finally filed, but that is not the case in India. We still file all the inventions that are developed in a lab. And that is where the actual challenge begins. So, why is it so? Most academic inventions are embryonic in nature, the technology is unproven, the market demand is unknown, and by de risking, basically, what we are trying to do is commercialization is all about risk reduction and de risking. So, the technology evaluation, it is the first round of risk reduction. There will be successive rounds of risk assessment and reduction. It is an iterative process, and there are various other ways also which we do for risk reduction and de risking. And generally, it is tied to what kind of licensing transactions we are going to do, and also depends on the financing, what kind of funds we are having at our disposal to do the de-risking of any particular technology. So when we receive a disclosure, we are not evaluating basically a product, but we are evaluating a possibility. Let's now talk about what technology assessment actually is and why it is so central to what do we do in a tech transfer office. Basically, at its core, technology assessment is a structured way of evaluating an invention to decide whether it is worth investing time, money, and effort into commercialization. So, technology assessment, it is not a nice to have activity, but it is actually the foundation of a tech transfer office, because every key decision we take, whether to file a patent, whether to market a technology, whether to create a startup, all of that depends on how well we assess the opportunity at an early stage. And globally, if you look at experienced practitioners, everyone uses some or the other form of structured assessments. For example, Ashley Stevens, he developed first look technology assessment. At the University of Texas, Brett Cornwall introduced the quick look technology assessment. Richard Cahoon, he proposed the 10-point technology scoring template. Now, regardless of which framework you use, whether it is first look, quick look, or any other scoring template, they all boil down to just two fundamental questions. First, how likely are we to get a patent on this technology? Because if we cannot protect it, it becomes very difficult to create commercial value, especially when dealing with industry partners. And second, even if we do get a patent, will anybody actually care? So, is there a real problem being solved? Is there a customer willing to pay? Is there a company who is interested in licensing it? And this is where many technologies they fail. What we often see is inventions that are scientifically interesting, even patentable, but they do not solve a meaningful market need, and that is why they fail. The next slide is very important. As you all know, that in early technologies, the risk is high and value is uncertain of that technology. So our job is to move technologies along this curve, basically reducing the risk while increasing the perceived value. That's what makes them investable. So the technology assessment, it is a critical step, and it has to be done upfront, because if we don't do it early, we end up making decisions that are, let us say, not very strategic. We tend to make bad decisions. What typically happens is, if we receive a disclosure, we are unsure about its potential, and instead of making a call, we go ahead and file a patent. So we file on most disclosures, which is not a good practice. Why? Because it is often difficult to explain to the faculty why we are not going to proceed with this. So filing becomes the easier option, and that is basically, it is kind of okay, let's reduce the risk and go ahead and file everything that we are getting. But what are we really doing by doing so, where we are trying to file all the disclosures that we are getting? We are just kicking the can down the road, and eventually the reality catches up, the technology does not progress, no licensee is interested, and we have already spent time, effort, and money. And at that point, the disappointment is actually much higher, because the inventor has invested emotionally and intellectually in the process. So, in a way, early honest assessment is kinder than late rejection. So, a good technology assessment framework, it helps us to make those tough decisions early. They justify them with data and logic, and communicate them more confidently to faculty that why we are not going ahead with the filing. And that's why this step is not optional, it's foundational, as I mentioned earlier as well. With this, we come to a very important concept, invention triage. So, successful technologies, they sit at the intersection of technical performance, the IP quality, and market relevance and economics. Even if one is weak, the commercialization finally struggles. So think of it in this way, that we are not investing in just science or just patents. We are investing in the overlap. What is this overlap? Where strong technology, strong IP, and real market demand intersect. Basically, that is where the value is created. Now, let's move on to the actual framework of the technology assessment. Technology assessment includes outline, how we go about it, the methodology, the report format. We have to submit format reports to the faculty, to the committee who is going to take a call whether to file a patent or no, whether to go for international filings or no. So we have to submit a report. Then ranking methodology. Basically, we have to rank how this technology ranks, and outcomes. Outcomes are basically the decisions that you are going to give to the committee whether we should be going in for it or not. So now that we have discussed why tech assessment is important, let's move into how we actually do it in practice. So a typical technology assessment outline looks as you can see on the screen. So it contains technology description, value proposition, product vision, potential markets, market interest, competing technologies, competitors in the market, what are barriers to market entry, the development status of technology, intellectual property status, and pathway to market. I will be talking about a few of these in detail in my upcoming slides. Maybe I will not go one by one, but I would take up the most important ones which we assess for doing the assessment. So once we know that what to look at, the next question is, how do we go about gathering this information, which I talked about in my previous slide. So on the screen, you can see that this is a step-by-step methodology that we follow to uh, to conduct a structured technology assessment. So it starts with the step one is to obtain a complete description of the technology and how it translates into products and services. Once we do that, we talk to the inventor whether this description is correct and what we have written is correct or not. We seek his inputs. Then we assess stage of development of technology and what are the next steps to scale it up, to demonstrate further, to de-risk it further. Search for competing patents or prior art. Then we identify potential markets and competing products. Then we go about doing secondary research. Basically, secondary research is from the available material that is available online. We identify end users, distributors, and potential licensees. Then we go about doing the primary research, basically interviewing and contacting subject matter experts, companies, industries who are actually working in this space. We derive our own, we do our own research by asking those questions to them. Then finally, we write the report and fill holes if necessary, and prepare a presentation to the committee who is going to take a call upon whether we are going to file or not file, or we are going to put in commercialization efforts or no. So at every step, I would say the buy-in or the inputs of the innovator are very important, because they have been working in that field since a long time. So they would bring about their expert opinions as well, their own networks as well. There could be people who might be contacting them for their technology for taking it further. So at every step, you are required to talk to the innovator. Whenever you complete that step, consult the innovator, and then only you go ahead. So that's how the methodology takes place for doing the technology assessment. The output is a structured report. So it just doesn't describe the technology, it evaluates the feasibility, the competitiveness, the commercialization pathway, and ends with a clear recommendation. So a typical report contains technology description, resulting products, potential benefits of that technology if it hits the market, potential commercial markets, market interest, development status of the technology. This is TRL. ease of scale up, what is the technology development plan, intellectual property status of the technology, competing technologies and the competitors, pathway to market, who could be your potential licensees, do you have anyone in mind, those kind of thing. And from your research, whatever information you have gathered, you'll put it here. What are barriers to market entry, commercial potential rating, and finally the recommendation of go or no go. So what I'm talking about, the recommendation, you will come to know in my next few slides where I tell you how to do that. So what does technology description actually means, and what kind of questions you should be seeking answers for to make a complete wholesome technology description? Does the invention disclosure thoroughly and clearly describe the invention? Are the inventive steps or features clearly delineated and explained in the disclosure? Do the inventive features appear to be technically meaningful and significant? Are the superior performance features described clearly? All these questions need to be answered to describe a technology. We evaluate IP at two levels. First is rentability. Can we get a patent? And prior art, basically, what is the likelihood of getting the patent? Is it already known or is it obvious? All these things are evaluated. So, this step prevents basically investing in non patentable or non protectable ideas. There are three criterias for patentability. Most of you might be aware of this, that criteria for patentability depends on novelty, utility, and non-obviousness. So missing any one of these weakens the IP position significantly. Now, when I talk about IP is not just patents. So while evaluation, we also look at various other forms of IP, that is trademark, copyright, if there is plant material involved, plant breeders right, trade secret, traditional knowledge, know how. Then is there a potential or existing bioproperty that may have value in commercialization of the technology? So all in all, a strong IP strategy is often a combination of all these IP and all the things which I just talked about. Then we go further deeper. Is it patentable vis-a-vis the prior art? Is there an issued or pending patent on the invention? Do the claims effectively cover the invention? Will the claims be reasonably enforceable? In which countries do potential or existing patent claims exist? Are these relevant to the market for the invention? Then, very important aspect which I have talked about in my previous slide, what is the market relevance? So, market assessment, again, it happens at two stages. First, the secondary research and then the primary research. Secondary research is basically other people's research, which you get from published literature, published reports. So you go by whatever has been published by others. That is your secondary research. Primary research is my research. Basically, how I'm going to do my research is I will uh, conduct interviews, and I would have sessions with experts in the field from the industry to ask questions on market relevance, and I will do my market assessment based on the inputs that I am getting from the experts. Another point which is very important in technology assessment, this is one of the aspect, is value proposition. So at least one clear value proposition must exist while you're doing the technology assessment. So you have to ask all these questions. Can at least one value proposition be described and substantiated for the invention in at least one market application? So value proposition is directly equal to quantitative benefit. So quantifiable cost. Is the value proposition feasible enough? Can you identify at least one reasonable business model for the selected value proposition? Is this business model suitable for a disruptive or paradigm shift, or a revolutionary or an incremental, either large or small innovation. So, value proposition is an important parameter to judge your technology. So, we also have to ask for significant economic value. So, does the combination of value proposition, market size, business model, and market characteristics establish the basis for significant economic value? So, basically, what we are trying to assess is the market large enough? Will the realization of that value require very large, moderate, or small investment? Here, what we are trying to do is to gauge the investment. Is that justified? The investment that is required, is that justified? Will the potential return justify the investment required? So, will the returns be attractive enough if we go ahead to file this technology, or if we plan to take it to the commercialization? Then, technology readiness level. All of you might be aware of it. What is the current stage of technical development of your invention? Is it just an idea, or you have demonstrated the POC? You have done some validation studies? Have you done extensive testing? Is it at a pilot scale? So on and so forth. So, where is the invention on the technology readiness level scale? So, you peg your technology basis various scales that are available. We usually use the IRAC TRL scale for our technology is pegging. What level of risk is the technology currently at? So basically, we must assess how far it is from market and how much risk still remains. So this level tells you that. Then we go about to understand scale up and risks and the feasibility. What are the next few steps needed to reduce the risk to where the technology is investable? Will those risk reduction steps be relatively easy or difficult in terms of time and money? Will you be able to secure that proof of principal funding? Will the cost required to de risk the technology be justified by the potential return on needed investment? Can the technology be cost effectively scaled up to a level of profitable manufacture or service delivery? What are the barriers to entry between this technology and reaching the market? So, all these questions need to be answered systematically. Then we try to understand who could be the potential partners. Is this technology going to be developed with an existing company, or does it need a startup? If an existing company who are some potential partners, do relationships with any of these potential partners exist? Are these partnerships closely linked to commercialization activity? If a startup company is there, investment is there any investment interest? So basically, what we are trying to decide is license to existing companies or creative startups. Are there interested partners? Is there an investor appetite? So, so far we have looked at all the key factors qualitatively, like what could be the qualitative analysis of any technology. Now, the question is, how do we bring all this together to make a clear decision? That is where scoring comes in. So, the next slide is all about that. This brings objectivity into decision making. So, what is important here is that this scoring is done from the perspective of a potential licensee or industry partner, not from an academic perspective. So, before I walk you through the parameters and through this scoring matrix that you can see on the screen, just to note that this is the scoring template. We use it at TechX Venture Center, and this has been adapted from the technology assessment framework, which is developed by Dr. Ashley Stevens. So, on the left hand side, you can see that these are the parameters on which we are going to assess the technologies, and we have given weightage to each parameter that we are going to assess. And then we will score from on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is the lowest score, 5 is the highest score, and then we derive the weighted score. So there is a formula to get this weighted score. So the first thing that we do is current status of technology. So TRL, basically early stage technologies, they score lower due to higher risk and investment needs. Second, what is the proof of concept quality? The stronger and more convincing it is, the higher is the confidence, higher is the score that we will give to this parameter. Third, what are the scale up risks? What are the barriers in tech advancement? So, something that works in the lab may not scale economically. So, higher the risk, lower the score. So, on the score column, this particular parameter for a technology which is showing higher risk will score lower. Fourth is IP strength. So, basically, we look at claim strength, prior art, and freedom to operate. So, blocking patents, they reduce industry interest, hence, it reduces the potential to get commercialized, and hence, we give a lower score to such technologies. Next comes market potential. How large is the market? Is it growing? With a so if we find that, then it is a clear higher score there. Market maturity, existing demand is better, creating a new market increases risks. So, again, this would get a lower score. And finally, competition risk. Crowded markets or dominant players make entry difficult, so scores go down. So, this is how we basically try to attribute scores to the parameters that we are judging for a given technology in hand. Now, once we have the final score, so once you fill this matrix up, you will get a weighted score and you will get a number here under this total of weighted score. So once we have the final score, we translate it into a decision. These are the outcomes that I was talking about. So if the score is above 3.5, it is a clear go. We move forward with patenting, or we move forward with international filing, and we move forward with the commercialization efforts. If it is below 2, it is a kill. Basically, the risks are too high or the value is too low. So, we will not go ahead with this kind of technology. In between the go and the kill, we have two conditional zones. Between 2.5 and 3.5, it is a conditional go. We proceed only if certain gaps are addressed. For example, improving proof of concept or clarifying the market, generating additional probably data would help us in making this score better. Between 2 and 2.5, it is a conditional kill. So we stop unless there is a strong reason or new data that changes the assessment. So that is how we interpret the scores of go, kill, conditional goals. So this slide is all about that. Now, now that we have seen the scoring approach, I'll walk you through how we apply this scoring in practice by taking two hypothetical case studies. So those case studies, they are just made up, so don't just go by and don't please apply your logic there. They are just case studies to demonstrate how you will go about scoring. So here is the case study one. It is about biodegradable hydrogel for diabetic foot ulcer healing. So there is a bioengineering lab that has developed a novel injectable hydrogel that accelerates tissue regeneration in chronic wounds. It has shown excellent results in small animals, that is, mouse rats, and the team has filed an Indian patent with plan to go for international PCT filing, right? The science is highly promising, but it faces a steep, heavily regulated path to market requiring GMP manufacturing and human clinical trials. So this is the scenario. Now let's look at how we will do the assessment of this technology basis the parameters and the scoring matrix which I just discussed with you. The current status of technology, it is a preclinical stage at TRL4. They have demonstrated it at small animals. So average scoring, that is 3. Quality of POC, highly convincing value proposition. It reduces healing time by 40% in models compared to current standard of care. Great. It is a great POC. So we'll give it a higher score of 4. And you can see the weighted average also have calculated basis the score and the percentage that we have given here, right? So I'm also giving you the weighted averages here. Risk barriers in scale up, high risk because transitioning from lab scale synthesis to GMP compliant biomanufacturing is expensive and complex. So this would score lower. So it has been given a score of 2. Strength of patent, FTO risk, strong novel composition of matter claims. They have PCT plans and FTO looks clear. Again, a strong point here. We will give a higher score of 4. Market potential, massive and growing global diabetic population requiring advanced wound care. Clearly, huge market potential. Again, a higher score of 4. Market maturity demand, high demand. Clinicians are actively seeking better interventions to prevent amputations. Again, a higher score of 4. Competition risk, highly competitive. The advanced wound care market is dominated by well resourced multinationals with extensive distribution networks. So, this makes your case a bit of weak in competition and risk, competitive risk. So, we give it a lower score of 2. Now, when I add up all the weighted scores here, the total weighted score comes out to be 3.7, which is more than 3.5. So it's a clear go. So we would recommend the committee to, yes, please, you go ahead with your PCT filing. Please do invest in the commercialization efforts of this technology. This was one case study. Now I will show you second case study. This is about process for extracting silica from rice husk ash. So scenario is a chemistry department. They have optimized a method to extract industrial grade silica from agricultural waste. They have successfully demonstrated the process at a 100 kg pilot scale. However, the process is highly energy intensive and the end product is a widely available commodity chemical where buyers purchase strictly based on the lowest price per ton. So do remember all these things. And now I'll show you how we will go about doing the technology assessment based on the scoring parameters that were shown. Current status of technology, pilot scale proven, high TRL, high score, that is score of 4. Quality of POC, the process works mechanically, but the value proposition is weak. So as I told you, value proposition is very important. But in this technology, it is very weak because the high energy costs cancel out the cheap raw material advantage. So a lower score, that is only 2 is the score that we will attribute. Risks, barriers and scale up, moderate. We see moderate risks there. Standard chemical engineering thing is there, but the logistics of continuously collecting and transporting low density rice husks to the plant are challenging. So we will give it a average score, that is score of 3 on a scale of 5. Strength of patent, FTO risk, it is a process patent only, which is difficult to enforce and relatively easy for competitors to engineer around it. So again, we will give it a lower score, that is 2. What is the market potential? Extremely high volume, but razor thin margins. Again, this affects your market potential. So we will give it a score of 2. Then market maturity. As I mentioned in my scenario, it is a fully commoditized market. Buyers exist, but they have zero brand loyalty and only care about undercutting current market prices. Again, this will score lower. That is, we will give you score of 2 for this. Next, competition risk. Competing against massive established silica manufacturing plants and cheap global imports that benefit from massive economies of scale. So, this is a clear, I would say, a very risky proposition that you have, and we give a score of only 1 because it scores very low given this scenario. So if I add up all the weighted score, it comes about to be 2.25. So it is a conditional kill, which I was talking about, unless an established partner with captive energy and waste husk signs a co-development and offtake agreement. Unless this condition is met, we will recommend the committee not to invest time, money, and effort in this technology. So I hope with these two case studies, I was able to make the concept of scoring parameters and how technology assessment is done clear to you. For further reading, I would request all of you to visit our TT online manual, where we have a dedicated section on technology assessment which has videos from experts. We have collated a lot of information there. Templates also are there which you can refer to. And also go and check our TTO handbook. It also has a dedicated section on technology assessment. We developed this handbook along with Unido. So I will end my session with one thought, that not every invention deserves a patent, and not every patent is deserves commercialization. Our job is to identify the few that truly matter and support them. With this, I would like to close my session. Thanks for your patient listening, and I will now be happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Pradnya. You're able to hear me, right?
Yes, yes.
So anyone who wishes to ask any question, they can raise their hand also. Right now, I don't see any questions in the chat box. Dr. Prerna, do you want to add anything here?
Pragna, I think in the case studies, you only use 3 of the parameters. Other 3 you assumed, I think. Others, right? As
Uh,
full score, is it?
s- Pardon, sir?
In the technology assessment scoring that you were using, you
Yeah.
had the table about 6, 7 odd rows, but you used only
Yes.
3 of them finally in the case studies. The rest
No,
you
no.
assumed as good, strong to go, is it?
Yeah. So at the outset only, I put a disclaimer that these are all hypothetical cases. I did not take any real life example, and I assumed, definitely I could not show the entire data, but I assumed that they are strong. Otherwise, I would not have been able to explain them how we go about scoring. That's why.
Yeah, one other thing I thought I can mention here is that depending upon different organizations may choose to peg those scores at different levels, right? Depending upon at what stage they are and what their organizational goals are. So, I mean, the numbers which you pegged for go or kill, those are
Hmm.
an example, an illustration. You can always change the weightages and so on and so forth, depending upon what an organization thinks is important, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
as an example, you know, um, like we in NCL we had a mechanism by which on one side we're taking a call on whether to patent or not. Second, to whether how much to go in terms of investing in patent costs and so on. We would take a view on uh, this decision in the early stages when we wanted to file, create a body of patents to, build credibility, have a presence in a certain field, and so on. Our cutoff was not as high, right? But as the numbers grew and the portfolio increased, we sort of tightened the cutoff. Same thing even for commercialization. As the numbers grow, you start tightening the cutoff as well. So I think even in TechX, I think that is something which we would follow as well.
Yeah. So, like as I mentioned in my initial slides also, there are various frameworks that people have come up with. So they call it by various names, but essentially they are covering two, three very important aspects about technology, quality, IP, and markets. So all those things, they revolve around these three things, and they are, free to come up with their own scale and give weightage basis what their institute's requirement is, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Pragya, did you cover the importance of sort of first-hand interviews with experts and other people who understand the field and so on and so
Yes,
forth?
yes,
Yeah.
so
Can
I
you repeat
covered
that a
that in.
little? Yeah.
So basically, when when I explained about the secondary research and the primary research, when we go about assessing the market, we interview the experts. So we call them as, we
Key
call it
opinion
as,
leaders.
yeah, KOLs. So key
Yeah.
opinion leaders, and their views matter a lot because they are the people who are practicing in that field. They know the markets in and out. So once we are done with our secondary research, it is important and essential to carry out those primary researches as well by interviewing those KOLs.
Amongst the things you were rating and assessing, were there any categories which were harder to do versus others which were easier to do? For example, sometimes you don't have enough data available as a person evaluating it. Sometimes the data is too expensive to get, and so on. So, are there any pointers there, practical pointers?
Uh, okay. Can you see my screen? I don't know.
Not right now. Nothing is on the screen. Okay,
Okay,
we're not
just
sharing. Yeah.
I'll just share. Give me a minute. I stopped sharing maybe. Okay. Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want me to answer from what our practical experience has been while dealing with these parameters?
Yeah, yeah. So, for example, certain things are harder to assess sometimes, right? Um, See, like for example, um, knowing, the strength of a patent, for example, is something which one can do an analysis on, right? It's a little more within reach, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Quality of POC, POV, convincing value
So,
proposition is something which I find many people quite in the academic centers not really um,
yeah. So,
having a sense
yes.
of that. Mm.
Yeah, so value proposition, I was talking about that in my slides as well, that it is the heart of your technology, and it is very important to draw value propositions. Many a times, what we have experienced practically when we were dealing with academicians and scientists, the value propositions that our team that finds out, they are not being, looked at, or they were not being found by the scientists themselves. So this perspective bringing is very important, and this is a task to do, I would say, bringing out the convincing value proposition, because they come from a very scientific bent of mind, whereas we are looking from a point of view of a licensee and industry. So that makes a lot of difference, I would say.
Did you also cover what databases you use, or what kind of,
uh,
what kind of general data sources that one uses for such analysis?
No, sir, I did not cover that. The data sets or data sources that we use.
Right. Broadly, perhaps we can discuss that, like for market, industry, patterns, right?
Yeah. So basically, see, the secondary research that we do for the markets, we usually rely upon freely available resources, though there are paid market research is also available, but most of the time we use various other sources. There are many, like markets and markets, for then fortunes, and there are many others which are available, which we use for that. For patent assessment, we rely upon the freely available databases as well as paid databases. So for the paid databases, we usually go to Derwent. We have access to that, and various other like WIPO and all, Google patents. All these we use for doing our patent landscape, risk, FTOs, and strength of the patent, basically to gauge that.
Yeah, I think I don't have any more points to add. Are there any questions anybody has? They can ask, or else we can. Mugda, floor is yours here.
I don't see any question, at least in the chat box.
I think in that
Right
case,
now,
let's
there
wind
are no
up. Yeah.
questions. Let me alert everyone. The feedback link is in the chat box. Please do give your feedback, which also takes, there's also a section on what additional topics you would like to hear in this talk series. So you get a chance to suggest us new topics also. So requesting everyone to please give your feedback before leaving the session. Pradnya, with this, I would like to thank. I have also shared your email address in the chat box. In case anyone wants to reach out to you separately, the attendees are welcome to reach out to Pradnya on that email address. I have also shared a link of our earlier talks in this Only One Theme talk series. We have covered almost 60 plus topics over the last 4 years. And today's session is the last session in this current wave 4 of Only One Theme talk series. We generally tend to start the new wave in the month of September with a set of new topics. So please do suggest topics to us. Feel free to reach out to us with your suggestions and your feedback. So if there are no raised of hands, which I can't see any of you have raised your hands, let us thank Pradnya and also Dr. Premnath too for his additional comments, and thanking you all for joining this session. Thank you, Pradnya.
Thanks, Mugda. Thanks
Thanks.
all.
Nice
Bye.
talk. Yeah. Thank you.